This is stunning and disturbing, even though it shouldn't surprise us, but even I was a little bit shocked by what I'm going to play for you. Fox News host Sean Hannity had Donald Trump on his show for an interview. And one of the things that Hannity has previously asked Trump about is Trump's plans to act in dictatorial ways. And Hannity will frame it as, oh, the left, they're so crazy. They're saying you want to be a dictator. Just for the heck of it, would you put that to rest and say that's not what you want? And last time, oh, it was a joke. Trump said he wants to be a dictator on day one, right? Oh, that was tongue-in-cheek, you'll hear Sean Hannity say. Well, in this interview, for something like 4 minutes, Hannity tries to get Trump to address the question, are you going to enact retribution by abusing your power if you were to get a second term? And the response, again, is shocking from Trump. Hannity is panicked, as you'll notice, that Trump will not put this to rest because he is planning on abusing his power. Before I play the interview moment, for context, because Hannity will reference this, here's the moment that was the first time Hannity asked Trump about his dictatorial ambitions.
The media has been focused on this and attacking you. Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight, you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
what?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border and I want to drill. He says, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
So it was a joke, right? And also, as I've said before, why it is that you would have to abuse power to even do the things that he's misconstruing, like needing to close the border as if right now we have the door open, and needing to drill when record oil production is taking place under President Biden. But even so, there's always going to be a justification. I'll keep saying this. Authoritarianism doesn't come out of nowhere. There's going to be some argument they'll make as to why we had to get here. And for Trump, it was, I guess I'd be a dictator, and what's my justification? The border? And now I have for you more of this interview than I normally play all at once, but we'll go through this one piece at a time as Hannity tries to help Trump out politically and get him to overtly, explicitly say, no, of course I'm not going to abuse power. Of course I'm not running a campaign about enacting retribution and hurting those who don't support me. And Trump doesn't go along with it.
People are saying, actually because of an interview we did together, you said, I would be dictator for the day and just to secure the border and drill for oil. I thought it was tongue-in-cheek. I was sitting there with you. However, my question is a very serious one. People are claiming you want retribution. People are claiming you want what has happened to you.
Trump's claiming he wants retribution.
Done to Democrats. Would you do that ever?
Look, what's happened to me has never happened in this country before. And it has to stop because...
Wait a minute. I want to hear that again. It has to stop.
Well, it does have to stop because we're not going to have a country
And if you're
anymore.
elected, what does that mean? Define that.
Look.
Come closer. Okay. Every single week, millions of people watch the show who aren't subscribed to it. YouTube metrics tells us that's crazy town. So it breaks my heart if I think too long about it. If you're a regular viewer and you do like the show, makes a huge difference just to click that subscribe button and help us continue to grow.
What I've gone through, nobody's ever gone through. I'm a very legitimate person. I built a great business. I have been under siege. Nobody's ever
I am the most legitimate, 4 times indicted, convicted felon.
seen anything like this in this country. Now, in other countries, in other third world countries, or banana republics, as they say, a banana republic, we've become a banana republic. At the border, we become a banana republic. With so many other elements of our country, we become a banana republic. You take a look at what's happening with inflation. That's a banana republic inflation, what we have. I think it could be as high as 50% if you add everything in. When you start adding energy prices in, when you start adding interest rates, which have gone from 2% to 9 and 10%.
But focus on those that want people to believe that you want retribution, that you will use the system of...
So I'm going to continue playing more, but I guess I have to give some credit, even though this feels icky. I feel dirty doing this. I have to give some credit to Hannity for pushing on this. Other Fox hosts refuse to because they know what Trump would say and they know it's not good. So at least he is pressing him for some period of time. Just the little tiniest bit of journalism going on. But he's framing it as the media, they're so unfair to you. They keep attacking you on this. They say that you want retribution because you said that you did. It's bizarre, but here's more.
Justice to go after your political enemies.
So, number one, they're wrong. It has to stop because otherwise we're not going to have a country. Look, when this election is over, based on what they've done, I would have every right to go after them. And it's easy because it's Joe Biden. And you see all the criminality, all of the money that's going into the family and him, all of this money from China, from Russia, from Ukraine. During one of the interviews, I said, what about the $3.5 million paid to the Biden family from the mayor of Moscow's wife? What about that? And
Russian
Chris Wallace defended him, said, you can't ask that question. Well,
so this is just Trump desperately trying to avoid answering the question. He'll say in a vague sense it has to stop. It gets to him more explicitly, if you can imagine, saying, yeah, of course, is sort of what he's alluding to in just a second here. But for a while, he's trying not to make it so clear by doing a little filibuster here and going through all of his normal dishonest talking points. But eventually, he's cornered. And notice here, too, what we're seeing is, I think previously there was an attempt to at least put up the facade of not wanting an authoritarian future, right? It was already crumbling, this facade, but it's definitely happening now where we're hearing some of these Republicans say, no, we want to break down democratic institutions. We want to violate constitutional principles. We want to enact retribution by abusing power. That's how angry we are. So the facade is falling apart.
then it turned out to be a big deal long after that debate. That was one of the debates. And it turned out to be a big deal. And Chris Wallace said, we can't go there because we don't know that it should turn out to be true. Millions and millions of dollars. Now,
By the way, he had dinner with her at the Cafe Milano. And he said to America he never once talked to his son, brother, or anybody about their foreign business deal.
Well, he said it, and then you
And they still haven't proved otherwise.
found out it was absolutely untrue. Everything he says is untrue. There's never been a president like this. Look, he is a horrible president. He's destroying our country at the border. He's allowing millions of people to come in from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, which is a step above, a big step above a mental institution. He's allowing terrorists to flood into our country. And the numbers are probably 16, 17, or 18 million people. You're going to have over 20 million people, I think, I believe, and a lot of other people do too, by the time he hopefully gets out. November 5th, Election Day, will be the most, and by the way, it starts on September 22nd. It starts earlier because of early voting. But November 5th will go down as the most important election in the history of our country. It's going to be the most important day and period in the history of our country.
Will you pledge to restore equal justice, equal application of our laws, end this practice of weaponization? Is that a promise you're going to make?
You have to do it. But it's awful. Look, I know you want me to say something.
No, I don't want you to say. I'm asking.
But I don't want to look naive.
I don't want
What they've done to the Republican Party, they want to arrest on no crime. They want to arrest the person that won the nomination.
And then on to that. Did you see? Will you pledge to end the weaponization of justice, I think is the way that Hannity phrased it. And Trump says, well, you have to do it and it's horrible. Meaning you have to do the weaponization. And this is the argument. Again, it's so much more overt. I talked about in a past segment, the snapping of MAGA post-January 6th was one phase. Now we're seeing post-verdict a new escalation and a transparency in the dangerousness of their ambitions that we haven't seen yet. And it's really frightening where he's saying there, it has to be done, meaning he's going to have to weaponize his authority, if he were to get a second term, which is a reminder here that we should do everything we can to prevent him from getting a second term. And that's justified in his mind because of these conspiracy theories about Biden. And what MAGA is just not getting their heads around is that maybe, just maybe, the reason why Trump has so many criminal cases and so many legal troubles, criminal and civil, is because he's bringing it onto himself. And in a country that truly does have law and order and no one is above the law, even former presidents and presidential candidates can get themselves into legal trouble. So when Trump is getting asked about, are you going to go after, his answer should be, I'm not going to involve myself in that. If Biden gets himself into legal trouble, just like what Democrats believe, then he should be held legally accountable. He's just not acting in criminal and allegedly criminal ways so much like Donald Trump is. But what we're hearing increasingly from pundits, Dan Bongino, we're not going to forget this, we covered yesterday, is the explicit request to Trump and encouraging of Trump to act in authoritarian, power-abusing ways to enact retribution on those that they hate so much. Now, I do want to address, Hannity said that he believed Trump, he believed that Trump was speaking tongue-in-cheek in that first clip I showed you when he was saying that he would be a dictator on day one. And that's something that I've heard so many MAGA folks out there, as I've told you before. One of the reasons I request that you support the show if you enjoy the content is because sometimes we got to watch a lot of right-wing media to produce the show, and that is torturous. So you can click the join button below if you want to support the show and get the daily bonus show. But in so doing, I've come across so many pundits, so many people where the common knowledge now among MAGA is that the dictator on day one thing was a liberal hoax. That people being concerned about him saying he would enact retribution, abuse his power, and be a dictator on day one, that was some sort of false story. And the argument goes something like, because he was obviously kidding. So then my question to Hannity is, was that answer tongue-in-cheek? That 3-4 minutes of Trump first refusing to say he wouldn't abuse his power, then saying it has to be done and it's horrible. Was that tongue-in-cheek? Was he also just being silly and goofy? Was it tongue-in-cheek when he called for the termination of the Constitution? When he called media outlets criminals? When he said the government should come down hard on media outlets he doesn't like MSNBC? Was it just a gag, a goof, a giggle when he tried to block the peaceful transfer of power? Something that now he and a bunch of his allies are being criminally prosecuted for. He's promising to abuse his power and enact retribution, and the response from a lot of conservatives is either, not all, and I want real constitutional conservatives, real pro-American conservatives to understand that in this moment, Biden's your guy if you care about those values. But many either respond with, yeah, that's what the liberals deserve, even though they've brought forward not a shred of evidence that that's what Biden's doing, that he's involving himself at all. But there is evidence of Trump's criminal wrongdoing, as shown by a jury of his peers finding him guilty of criminal wrongdoing. Or people say, oh, you're so hyperbolic. So it's either you're right, that's what Trump's going to do, and we love it. Or you're so hyperbolic and goofy. Come on, Trump's just trying to make us laugh. Because that's what politicians joke about, is being dictators. And then is the plan that is explicitly outlined to centralize power through Project 2025, is that also a part of the joke? And obviously the answer to all that is no, this is not a joke. So to any of the Americans out there that I see talking about, I'm reminded of Charlemagne the God. We did a segment where he's sort of saying, both candidates are trash. Obviously Biden's better, but... And I went through the policy record of Biden to prove that even separate from the contrast, the comparison, Biden also has a strong record to run on. But even so, I think people need to wake up and pay attention a little bit more. So many people don't seem to understand just how high stakes this moment is. And so we're sleepwalking into what could be an autocratic crumbling of our democracy. And then to MAGA, maybe you don't love America, meaning the values that America's supposed to represent or strive to represent as much as you thought that you did or that you think that you do. And I would do some introspection. I'm not trying to insult you, but if you are willing to support the guy who called for the termination of the Constitution and all the other things I listed, and who tried to end the process that keeps everything, the glue that holds our democracy together, being the peaceful transfer of power, and has this overt plan for a second term, and you're willing to go along with that because you hate the other side that much, you hate Joe Biden, you just can't stand that he's overseen such a strong economic recovery, you just can't stand, obviously, that's actually tongue-in-cheek me pretending like that's why you'd be mad at him. I wish more people understood that the recovery has been as strong as it has, but you can't stand the plummet in crime under him. You can't stand the infrastructure project. Now, of course, there's other myths as to why Biden is this satanic figure to many of these MAGA folks. But for whatever reason, real grievances you feel like you have, if you're willing to side with Trump over these fundamental American principles, then for all the time you've spent accusing the other side of hating America, maybe you're projecting. At least the values. Obviously, you don't think you hate your own country, but if you hate what it stands for, like our democratic process, then maybe so. And I'll say, to wrap it all up, I know I'm going through sort of the broader thesis of our election year coverage, but people who share my politics, and I won't spend the time now going through exactly how I define that, but right now, pro-democracy, people who understand the stakes of this election, who see the need for Biden to be reelected, who see the need for Democrats to win in elections across the board, House, Senate, and understand that we can unite people of a bunch of different policy persuasions around this common dedication to fundamental principles relating to the continuation of our constitutional democratic republic. Again, our second term, his second term, the plan is retribution. Our idea for a second term with quote unquote our guy, the candidate that we want to see win, is everyone becoming better off. Is policies that we believe won't hurt people, but will help people, even MAGA people, often disproportionately MAGA people, like investments in rural broadband. And so that's the contrast of this election. An agenda about harming those you hate versus an agenda about avoiding a crisis and an ideology that I hate, but then making everyone's lives better, even those who want to see democracy crumble, apparently, like many of those supporting Trump. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments. My goodness.